Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Lyons, and joining me today, my best man, Kevin Henry from FanSided, back together for the first time in 2 months, for the first time since Chicago, for the first time since I had COVID. Kevin Henry, what's going on, buddy?
What's up? Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Yeah, and thank you for not having COVID today. I really appreciate that.
Yes, Tiff always thanks me almost on a daily basis. Super producer Tiff, thank you for not having COVID or obeying the COVID protocols, as I like to do. That's why I have all of my beverages today. You might call me Pat Bev. I mean, it's not just a basketball player. It's also me here on the pod, so I got to be watching live on YouTube, on the DNVR Sports channel. We've got so many different things to cover as far as the end-of-year awards, Rookie of the Year. We've got 2 unanimous winners. I had a vote. I want to talk about my ballot. Yeah. You can grill me.
There's not much to grill, to be honest with you. I mean, as far as us here in Colorado, I think you hit it spot on. But
okay, we'll see.
But we'll talk.
We'll see about that. We'll talk about some players that could be added to the 40-man roster today. Big deadline day ahead of the Rule 5 draft. We'll get into a couple players that are definite locks, and then a lot of fringy guys. We'll kind of wait and see what happens. Rockies have some room to add players. Manager of the Year award is going on today. We'll find out that later in the evening, and we'll make our predictions. Maybe I can get you to spoil who you voted for in the MVP voting. Will you spoil?
I won't spoil, but I'll give you some teasers. How about that?
Ooh.
Yeah, so we will talk NL MVP for sure.
Can you say that whether or not you voted for a player in the NL East?
I can confirm that.
All right.
There you go.
All right, there you go. All right, we broke something here. Someone from the NL East will be getting a vote somewhere within the top 10.
Yes.
Unless you have some secret vote ballot where you go from 11 to 20, even though it doesn't count.
You know, as I sit here and think, I'm pretty sure there were 4 in my top 10.
Oh, wow. We're really getting specific.
Let's really nail down here. How about that? Yes.
Very interesting.
There you go.
But on unfortunate news to start the show off, right before we went live here Tuesday afternoon, Peter Seidler, owner of the San Diego Padres, passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 63. I know he was dealing with a lot of different health issues with cancer and whatnot. And I know you've kind of have your eyes and ears on the San Diego area a lot as well.
Yeah, and this is a big loss. I mean, there is Padres Twitter, as Rockies are well aware, and obviously this is a little bit of a shock, but also something that we knew he went in for a procedure. We knew that he has not been well, has been battling health issues, but absolutely, this is something that you were kind of wondering why the Padres were taking their time with the manager, and you kind of wonder now if this is the reason. And so will this put a pause on anything else that they'll give time to grieve, give time to pay their respects? And they are opening up Petco Park today for people to come in and actually grieve and pay their respects. So it's a big loss for San Diego.
Yeah, free parking in the tailgate lot in San Diego. Go through the home plate gate if you happen to be there. So I think that's a nice way of honoring him and allowing fans to kind of say goodbye to an owner that was everything that you want out of an owner. Say what you will about the finances and how does something look, or again, just the financial aspect of sports. Sports are here for the fans to go and have a distraction, and the biggest distraction you can have is to say that your team was the best, and to invest in that, and to invest in a team and go beyond maybe what you really should be doing. It's really all for the fans and giving back to the community. And Peter Seidler loved San Diego, and that's why he did what he did. And so he kind of goes out on top, as an owner, doing it the way that you really wish a lot more owners would do things.
Oh, absolutely. And you do wonder if he spent very freely, knowing that maybe his time was short, knowing that maybe he had one chance to really see them win a ring. And obviously, we all know how the Padres season went. We all know how they fell apart last year. But still, it's absolutely something that, like you said, this is what you want your sports owners to be. And certainly AJ Preller. The Padres have come under a lot of criticism for what happened last year, but he did everything to put the team into place, but you can't buy chemistry.
No, you can't. So, well, obviously, it's going to be a lot that happens now after this, who takes over the reins and whatnot. And that could throw the Padres off season, out of whack just a little bit. But thoughts and prayers out to Peter Seidler, his family, Padres community, too, again, for losing their owner. We did have 2 Rookie of the Year award winners last night, both unanimous, only the 5th time in the history of the Jackie Robinson Rookie of the Year award. You had unanimous winners. I think that's probably one of the reasons why it feels like it wasn't a huge deal. Maybe in Denver because the Broncos were playing last night. The Avs also had a game. We had Gunnar Henderson for Baltimore winning it unanimously. First place vote on all 30 ballots. Basically how it breaks down is there's 15 teams in each league. Each city gets 2 votes. So that's where the number 30 comes in. 13th unanimous winner in AL history among that group. One former Rocky, Sandy Alomar Jr. in 1990.
Nice.
And then one guy who almost became a Rocky, Jose Abreu, in 2014. Tanner Bybee was 2nd place. Trenton Casas was 3rd. 8th time an Oriole has won the award. First time since Greg Olson in 1989.
Yeah, it's something that, we've talked. You and I have, and I know you've talked on the podcast as well, how bright the future is in Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
And isn't it weird that we talk so much about Adley, we talk so much about other pieces of the Orioles, and it almost feels like sometimes Gunnar gets overlooked a little bit. And yet what he did for the team last year, and again, knowing that they've got that solid player in the lineup, good things for coming in Baltimore.
You get Adley Rutschman was your first overall pick in 2019. And then in the second round, you get Gunnar Henderson. So you've got 2 franchise players in the same draft for the Orioles.
And could they go back to back? Could Holiday? That's the whole thing.
Yes.
Seriously, you got to think about next year. Could Jackson Holiday be that guy that this time of year AL BBWAA voters are thinking about?
Very true.
Yep.
No, you look at what the Orioles have been able to do in building up that franchise, and so much it had to do with tanking, not being bad for 1 year, and just, hey, we got a couple of really good picks, or the first overall pick in 2019. No, it was doing it for multiple years so that you also get Jackson Holiday again, another first overall pick. So it'll be interesting for the Rockies this year, who have a chance to get the first overall pick with the new draft lottery with 18.3%. They'll have the 3rd overall pick in each round. After that, they also have a competitive balance round pick A. That's where they were able to, load up in last 2021 draft, where they got 2022 draft with Jordan Beck. You have these front end picks. It can really change, the future of your franchise, because you get more bites at the apple, you get more money to spend, and you just get access to better players.
And think back to not this past season, but the season before. The Orioles had that strong start, and everybody's going, are they going to cash in at the trade deadline? Are they going to make some big moves? And they actually didn't. They went the other way.
Right.
And a lot of people criticized Baltimore at that point. But when you look at what happened this season, you look at where their drafts have been recently, it's hard to criticize really anything the Orioles are doing right now.
No, Michael Elias has done a wonderful job. That's what happens when you take guys from successful organizations, put them in front office positions of power. You say, hey, it worked over there. Let's kind of use that same thing. It's a crazy idea. I don't know. I don't think it'll work anywhere else. All right. 8th Oriole, as I said, to ever win the award. In the American League, only the Yankees have more Rookie of the Year award winners with 9. Now in the National League, Reds have 8, Atlanta has 9, Dodgers have won 18 Rookie of the Year awards. And now for the first time, they're the last team. They're the last team that had never won a Rookie of the Year award. Arizona Diamondbacks get it done. Unanimous. Corbin, Carroll, absolutely fantastic. Everyone watching this show, Rockies fans, folks who watch the NL West know how good Corbin Carroll was this year. 14th player in the NL to win it unanimously. And the first to do it again, with that, we had AL, NL, unanimous winner since 2017, Cody Bellinger and Aaron Judge.
And the Corbin Carroll vote felt like the most anticlimactic thing that we could possibly have. I mean, it feels like we were talking about that at the All-Star break. So, and you and I were talking before the show, what could he have possibly done to have lost that vote? I'm not sure that there really is anything that he could have done to fall behind Nolan Jones, shall we say, or Kodai Singer, or any of the others that were out there, including that Outman guy from LA.
That Outman guy. Yeah, Carroll had that injury scare with the shoulder, and it was even speculated, hey, his season's done. And then after that, he was quieted just a little bit. The Diamondbacks were quieted just in general, right? Because they just weren't really good. going into that second half, but his numbers were still really solid. Power got sapped, I think, a little bit, stole more bases in the second half than the first, 28 to 26. So he was just fantastic. You have two 22-year-old winners. Both those guys, I think, are 23 now, but in their age 22 season. Did some quick research. I was like, oh, is that like the youngest Rookie of the Year awards? So immediately, again, thought process goes to, all right, well, Bryce Harper won it at age 19. Well, Mike Trout won it at age 20 that same year. So that's almost like virtually impossible to beat. So I think that's the answer right there. I don't know for sure, but I feel confident.
Well, and you and I were both on the BBWAA call afterwards. And to hear Corbin, Carroll, and Gunnar Henderson both talk very glowingly about each other.
Yeah.
About how they kind of grew up together. And, I didn't realize that not only were they so close, but Bobby Witt Jr., is in that mix as well. So you think about all these young position players that are kind of coming up together and the bond that they have. And I know there was the picture shared on social media of Gunnar and Corbin switching their jerseys there in Arizona, which was really cool.
Yeah, that is a nice aspect about this balanced schedule this year being the first one in 2023, is that now you can have like top prospects who are like, hey, you might win it. Like, I don't know how many different jerseys Corbin Carroll did this with. He's like, I got the NL locked up. I'm good. I don't know about you, Tanner Bybee. Like, we'll do a swap. We'll take a photograph. It might not ever see the light of day. But now you're going to kind of have those kind of moments for these young guys to, make new friends, to acknowledge each other. So I think that was a really cool thing to see for him.
The whole baseball's a brotherhood thing, and it really showed through last night when those two guys on the separate calls were talking so great about each other.
Previous closest a Diamondback had ever gotten to winning the award, Wade Miley, coincidentally, in 2012 when Bryce Harper won that. Kodai Senga, second place, no surprise there. And kind of no surprise, but we'll talk about it. Third place, James Outman for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But I do have to say that if you want to get a fantastic way to jazz up a man cave or a living room, Saturday Neon is the way to go. It's a company that was created by two former college roommates up at CU. So we're talking a local company that makes LED neon signs for a ton of Division I football teams. They look amazing. They also have CSU. It's fantastic. Officially licensed. Great for offices, man caves, dorm rooms, basement, bar areas. It's really cool. Go head over to SaturdayNeon.com. Use code DNVR for 10% off your order today. And the cool thing is free shipping. That's a big item right there. They're going to ship it to you absolutely for free for all orders over $200. And for all orders in Shady Rays, you're going to be able to buy one and get one free when you use promo code DNVR. They've got a lost and broken replacement policy. So if you lose or break them, don't worry. They'll hook you up even if it's on your first day. Holidays are coming up. So if you want to buy a gift for yourself, get one for free and give that out, or you want to give two pairs of glasses to friends, you can do that, but pay for the price of only one. When you use that code DNVR, you can go down to the Park Meadows Mall, and you buy two or more pairs of polarized shades. You get them for 50% off. Shady Rays, 250,000 people couldn't possibly be wrong, giving them 5 stars. Shady Rays, looking good in the sun, like James Outman is looking good. Absolutely. In LA, 26-year-old outfielder. Look, I wrote about it over on the DNVR.com. You can kind of see what my thought process was. And what's interesting is I kind of had the same thought process, I think, of a lot of people. But then I continued to think through the final 3 weeks of the season, because it very much felt like, halfway through the year, Corbin Carroll, head and shoulders above the rest. Hey, maybe James Outman can maybe make some noise. He didn't, but he's going to be in there as the number 2. Kodai Senga, fantastic Japanese pitcher, 30 years old, coming over to pitch for the Mets, was fantastic. He was just really consistent all year long. Seems like those were the guys. There were some other exciting players that had come up that you're saying, hey, maybe this guy could be a dark horse. But throughout the entire season, it really seemed like these 3 guys, Carroll, Senga, and Outman, were the 3 best players. Seemed like it.
Yeah. And I remember going back to spring training and Dave Roberts talking about Outman and how he could take over an outfield position. So, kudos to him for actually grabbing the opportunity and running with it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, if you look at certain stretches, Nolan Jones is the guy that blows away the numbers. And I know you're going to say Homer, you're going to say Coors, all that stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot to be said for why Nolan should have gotten a few more ballots.
Yeah, Jones was on 13 of the 30 National League Rookie of the Year award ballots, whereas Outman was only on 10. If you actually look and break it down and say, well, how many people had Outman higher than Jones? 9. How many people had Jones higher than Outman? 12.
Yeah.
So I think the system that's in place is such that because you can only have spots for 3 players, the final spot, in some years that third place vote can be huge. That can be pivotal. And in some ways, you can say that was the case here because Outman had 20 points, in third place. Nolan Jones only had 17. That's a difference of 3. Yeah. You look and you say, Patrick Bailey got a vote, a guy who had a 644 OPS, the lowest of any player that received a vote in either league in Rookie of the Years since 1997. Davey Cruz, who he also got MVP votes that year. That's a strange one. Go back and look at that guy. Yuri Perez, who again was exciting, did not get ahead of Kodai Senga in someone's ballot, but was exciting. Only pitched 19 games. Okay, that's fine. And then someone else got a random kind of third, Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah, there's De La Cruz. There's the whole ballot that we shall not name here, but there were a couple that were stretches, and you wonder what ifs on that.
Right.
And with the MVP balloting, whenever I turn in my MVP ballot, I have 10 names on there, and Rookie of the Year only has 3. It is worth thinking, could that be expanded to a 5, and what would that do? What would that have done this year? I do think Jones might have gotten a little bit more love had there been a few more opportunities to write his name in there.
Besides the fact that you go 5 deep, now some of those 3 names, De La Cruz, Bailey, and Perez, now maybe they slide back to 4th, and Jones gets 3rd, and now you've got somewhat of a tie. But if you're going 5 deep, now you need to do a little bit more homework. Because if, I knew going into this, the result was going to be Carroll, Senga, Outman. I didn't necessarily care about being right? This is a subjective process. I want to say, well, who do I think my ballot would actually be? And didn't necessarily care about being right. So that would have maybe changed some things. You got to go 5 deep. You look and go, hey, wait a minute. Who's this Nolan Jones guy, right? Like if you're, let's say, a journalist in Philadelphia, you got done with the Phillies really quickly, and you didn't even get a chance to see Jones by the time he ended up making his Rockies debut late in May, right? Because he got called up early in April 12th, got sent back down April 16th, didn't even get a chance to play. You also wonder what if had he stuck around there. His numbers were really solid in AAA at that point. Had he got a chance to play, his overall counting stats would have been a little bit better. All of the rate stats were absolutely fantastic. He had the highest OPS of any player, of any rookie in either league that had 150 plate appearances. I think Davis Schneider, who had like 141 plate appearances for the Toronto Blue Jays, had a slightly better OPS. Even if you adjust for park factors, an OPS plus, you still had Nolan Jones head and shoulders above the rest. He wasn't better than Corbin Carroll, but he was head and shoulders above the next best hitter in the National League.
So when the voting came out last night, I had a feeling I knew how your vote was going to line out, and no arguments there at all with how you voted. Jones second, absolutely. But I looked, and there was another guy who voted Jones second as well. It wasn't just you. And so I was like, okay. And I looked, gentleman out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Put Nolan Jones second. So I was like, that's kind of a kudo right there.
Right.
People could say, oh, he's in Denver. Of course he's going to vote for Nolan Jones. No, here's a guy who's on the other side of the country who did the research, who really looked, and good for him for finding the Nolan Jones nugget.
Yeah, no, for sure. Again, you look at the numbers at the end of the season. You'll see in my article where I tell you what my ballot was. It was Corbin Carroll number 1, number 2 Nolan Jones, and number 3 Kodai Senga. And really, Jones and Senga, I couldn't ultimately decide. And the tiebreaker was the fact that Kodai Senga, 200 strikeouts as a rookie in the modern era. That had only happened 18 times. Nolan Jones, 20 homers, 20 stolen bases. Only happened 16 times for a rookie. There was the tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker.
Ultimately, those 2 guys were right there. It was really hard to kind of choose between them. But you'll see in my article that kind of somewhat fortuitously on a Wednesday, on a day game, right? What am I going to do that night? Go out to dinner with my wife? No, I'm looking at rookie statistics on September 13th, and I actually had Spencer Steer was going to get my 3rd pick. It was going to be Carroll, Senga, and Spencer Steer, a guy whose numbers were better than James Outman.
Yes.
They were better than James Outman. Now, Outman played a much more defensive, demanding position, right? Much more important position in center field, and was really solid defensively too, slightly above average. Whereas Steer was playing first base, a position that he hadn't played that much at. First base isn't, not that huge of a position where you should be able to figure it out quickly, but still, first base, third base, and outfield. Even had I want to say 15 or so games at second base, allowed his manager to put in Matt McClain,
right.
Allowed Ellie De La Cruz, Jonathan India when he came back off the IL in September. Also Noel V. Marte, a guy who's going to be one of the favorites and frontrunners in the 2024 Rookie of the Year. Now, this is more of a MVP, a value type situation, but this is what Spencer Steer was able to do as a rookie that I thought, again, look at the numbers. They were actually, a little bit better than James Outman.
But what you just said about him being able to move around the diamond, that's the argument that I hear so much whenever I was filling out my NL MVP ballot about why Mookie Betts should be at the top. Because Mookie played everywhere. Mookie allowed the Dodgers to do different things. And so while it does do with the numbers, I think that V is important, valuable. And there are times, like you said, if you can move Steer around, get other guys in, if you can move Betts around, then that creates a value. And can we talk about Bryce Harper for just half a second here?
Do it.
Him being willing to say, you know what, I'll play first base. Yeah, wow. Sign me up for that. I mean, that immediately takes care of any Phillies questions. So I think that whenever you talk about guys who are willing to move around, learn a new position, do what they need to do, that there's a lot of value in the valuable there for sure.
Yeah, and Jones was one of those players,
yeah.
Kind of out of position, no longer a third baseman truly. His first 3 games, 4 of his first 5 were at first base when he finally got called up after CJ Cron went down with his back issues, but then goes to the outfield and you immediately realize wow, this guy's got a cannon for an arm. And, some of the defensive metrics, most of them give an edge to James Outman defensively. If you want to say, well, Outman was really good defensively. Jones, I did see, I think Fielding Bible, did have defensive run saves, did have Nolan Jones ahead of James Outman defensively, especially when you take in consideration the 19 outfield assists, led all of Major League Baseball. And here's a stat for you, and tip of the cap to Rockies communication for getting that out. It's a strange one. It's almost a made-up stat, but it puts in better context how good Nolan Jones was defensively and the value that he provided the Rockies and the value that he provided himself as a rookie. Assists per game. So we don't think of things like that because there's not a ton of outfield assists.
That's an NBA. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. You can think about games. You can think about innings played in the outfield. And so the amount of assists he had, 0.22 per game, the highest in baseball history, literally. 19 outfield assists and only, was it 83 or is it 86 games that he was in the outfield?
Yeah.
Insane. We hadn't even seen a number as high as 0.2 assists per game since Roberto Clemente in 1961. This is the kind of talent that we're talking about. 20 homers, 20 RBI, and 19 outfield assists since Willie Mays had done it in 1955, a 2020-19 number. Only 4 other guys had done it before Nolan Jones. So again, you think of the rarity and the well-roundedness of a guy like Nolan Jones. Yes, he missed about a third of the season, but I think he more than made up for it, and that was why he was higher on my Rookie of the Year award ballot.
And going back to what you said a minute ago, and how many times do we hear it in the clubhouse? Learning to play the position. How many times did Bud talk about his ascension into that? And I think that's something that gets overlooked whenever you look at the end of season Nolan Jones, is the beginning of season Nolan Jones and where he was, that series that I was at in Seattle where he sat there, he never got into the game.
No.
That's a huge what if, I think, for the whole Rockies season right there is what if. But, it wasn't his time. And Bud Black has said that time and time again. It wasn't his time right then. But what he evolved into from the time that he actually cracked the lineup into what we saw in September was mind-blowing.
It was, yeah. In fact, after September 13th, again, to overplug this article here, the greatest article apparently I've ever written. According to me, I guess the way I'm bringing this up. No, but if you actually look, and again, kind of fortuitous on September 13th, after that point, Nolan Jones, according to Fangraph's version of wins above replacement, was the best player in all of baseball. Let me say that again. From September 14th to the end of the season, no one was better all around than Nolan Jones. That's not why he was second on my ballot, but that is part of his story in his season of why he was as good as he was. And I just think there may have been some voters that, maybe weren't necessarily paying attention to that, and those things happen. Also, people disagree.
It does. And going back to, you and I were texting last night, and one of the things that whenever I saw this, maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, no Tovar. No Ezekiel Tovar note on here. And how much going into the season were we all going, oh, he's got a shot at it. What if? Especially whenever he gets the starting shortstop job. I was surprised there wasn't a bit of love for Tovar along the way, too.
He was, one of the early odds-on kind of favorites, if you will. And yet, you know what? He lived up to the hype. That's how good this rookie class was this year.
Good point.
That's how special it was that he goes out and had 37 doubles, great defense, finalist for the Gold Glove Award. Guys, finalist for the Gold Glove Award, didn't get a single vote. Again, I think that's another reason why, maybe it goes 5 players deep. And then you see someone giving him a 5th place vote. I know the guy who voted for Patrick Bailey said, hey, he was the best defender in all of baseball. Great catcher framing. Maybe Brenton Doyle even gets like a 5th place vote.
Great point.
And you get something like that. This is actually the first year that a member of the Colorado Rockies had gotten any attention in the Rookie of the Year award voting since 2017, when Marquez finished 5th. Freeland finished 7th. And hey, Antonio Cincinnati was really good that year. But again, on the outside looking in, last time you had a Rockies player as high as 4th in the Rookie of the Year award voting, Trevor Story in 2016.
Yep.
So still Jason Jennings, the one and only Colorado Rockies Rookie of the Year award winner.
And it's interesting to me, you look back at Trevor, you remember that there was that thumb injury that cost him quite a bit of that season.
Yes.
And still finished that high.
That's true.
Yep.
Yeah. What if? A big, big what if.
For sure.
Look, if you're going to Las Vegas or if you need a good sports book, there's no what ifs when it comes to Circa Sportsbook and Circa Resorts and Casino. It's Vegas's first ever adults only casino resort. Saves time checking IDs. The world's largest sports book. It's 3-story stadium style, 78 million pixel screen. It takes 10 people to operate this thing. It's amazing. They've got all of this wet space, 15,000 square feet of wet space, 6 pools, 2 spas. It's amazing. They got great food all throughout the Circa Resorts and Casino in Las Vegas. And if you're going out to Broncos, Raiders, whether it's a Pac-12 or Mountain West event, you're an alumni, go ahead and use code DNVR to get 20% off that. Circa Sports Colorado. You download the app at circasports.com. Circa Sports bets can only be made while physically located in the state of Colorado. Must be 21 or older. All rights reserved. Circa Sports Colorado encourages you to gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER or visit problemgamblingcolorado.org. And this weekend, make sure you head down to the DNVR bar, because on Saturday and Sunday, they're actually giving away tickets to the Broncos Raiders event in Las Vegas to end the year. Start the new year off in a really great way. Probably going to want to get out of the cold a little bit, although it does get cold in the desert. I've only been to Vegas once. It was in December for the 2018 winter meetings, and it wasn't warm. It was on the cooler side, but it was still kind of better what was going on in Colorado.
Oh, pack a jacket. I mean, pack a jacket, you're going to be fine in the desert. You won't need the parka, though. Thank goodness.
No, you'll be safe. It certainly won't hurt to bring a jacket to Vegas for Broncos and Raiders. And if you actually do happen to get hurt when you're at work, make sure you're calling Backus and Schenker 222-2222, because look, they'll work on your case absolutely for free. They'll consult with you for free. Give them a call. You can go to coloradolaw.net, find out if you have a case. It can't hurt. The only thing you're doing is investing a little bit of your time to say, hey, do I have something here where I was injured in a ride share, motorcycle accident, car accident, pedestrian, whatever it is. Call 222-2222, all Troy Tulowitzki's, and find out if you have a case, because Backus and Schenker wins. They've done it to the tune of a lot. What is the number up to now? They should just keep it scrolling like McDonald's. How many burgers have they served? $1 billion is what they've actually won over the last 25 years with their 100 folks on staff, 30 lawyers. Backus and Schenker. Give them a call. Find out if you have a case absolutely for free. This ballot was really deep.
Yeah.
You ended up having Jones coming in 4th, 2 second-place votes. 5th place was Matt McClain, who had a similar case as as Nolan Jones. Really good rate stats, playing a demanding position, but again, Jones's numbers were slightly higher. Steer ended up being 6th, and then you had the 3 guys tied for 7th: Perez, De La Cruz, Patrick Bailey. Big British lad. Thank you, man. You've been jumping in the chat a lot lately. We appreciate you. Glad you're enjoying the Rockies talk. We should probably get to some actual Rockies news and notes before we make our picks for manager of the year or predictions. We also have some managerial news.
Yes.
In the news. That's usually how that works. But today's the day. 40-man rosters. They don't get finalized necessarily, but we got the Rule 5 draft coming up. I want to say December 6th is the day. It's a Wednesday at the winter meetings down in Nashville. We're both going to be there covering that bad boy. Last year, the Rockies had a pick. They traded it to the Tampa Bay Rays. That guy ended up having a really good year. Rockies usually don't exercise their Rule 5 pick. We'll preview that more as time goes on. But guys that can be selected in the Rule 5 draft are basically the players who aren't protected on the 40-man roster. If you're 18 years old or younger and you've been in a system for 5 years or more, you're available if you're not on the 40-man roster. If you're 19 years old when you sign your professional contract or older, you only have 4 years before you need to be put on the 40-man, or else a team can poach you in the Rule 5. There's 2 names that jump out. They're the Rockies' basically their top 2 prospects. The number 1 guy, he's 21st on the MLB pipeline, Adael Amador. He is a lock today, and so is Yankiel Fernandez, who continues to make strides. A run producer, doing it with home runs, driving in guys. Old school guy where you might look at the end of the year and say, only 25 homers, but he's got 100 RBI each and every year. Old school like that. Yankiel Fernandez, Adael Amador, absolute locks to be on the 40-man roster later on at about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. And I think if they add those 2 guys, then they'll have 2 spots left.
Yeah, they're at 36 right now, so they got 2. They could go all the way up to 40. They could also clear up some room as well.
They could. There could be some other moves coming today, but I'm curious if they're going to use another spot in there. Will they just go into the winter meetings with 1 spot open? Could they add somebody else? I know one guy who was really tearing it up in the Arizona Fall League was Mejia, the pitcher.
He looked good.
He really looked good. And so
yes.
I wonder if he got a lot of attention because of how he did in the AFL, and if the Rockies may make an unexpected move to put him on just because he's drawing some attention right now.
That feels like a great call because Blair Calvo was that guy last year that unfortunately, he did end up leaving the organization. But still, you looked at what he was able to do. I mean, Justin Lawrence played in the AFL the year before he was added to the 40-man roster. So it's a finishing school, the Arizona Fall League. And Mejia was really solid. He actually was on the Fall Stars team. So, I think probably before the AFL, he might have been like this dark horse. I might have even had on the outside looking in, but the buzz around him from the past month in Arizona was strong enough that I think you could possibly see something like that. Steven in the chat saying it's going to be interesting to see if the Rockies make any trades today. Look, this time last year, they acquired a guy by the name of Nolan Jones.
I remember that guy.
Yeah. I remember that guy. Yeah. That guy. But yeah, they made that deal. And Steven saying, could we see Dion Jorge? That's the pronunciation. Dion Jorge. I'm not used to it. That's an amazing pronunciation. Ryan Ritter get moved. Rockies could definitely free up some infield spots. Well, both those guys don't need to be put on the 40-man roster just yet. So you'd be trading them a little prematurely. Now, if you're talking about, middle infield type players and you say, well, the Rockies have a lot of depth right now. Excuse me. They've got Ryan McMahon. They've got Brendan Rodgers.
Yep.
They got to free up some room. They've got a lot of outfielders. Yes, I think you could see something like that. Steven, maybe you're even thinking like, well, if there's another Nolan Jones type player in another organization that, a team wants to remove off the roster, maybe you do trade a Dion Jorge or a Ryan Ritter, who definitely is climbing through the system very quickly. I think he finished up at AA after starting his season in Spokane. So there could be those kind of moves. Rockies have a lot of depth when it comes to their hitting prospects. So Bill Schmidt's going to have to be creative. We've been saying it kind of this entire offseason. That could be the kind of creativity, Steven, that we may end up seeing. In an article from last week about the offseason, some of the other names that I think could possibly get added today on the catcher side, because right now you only have Elias Diaz and Brian Servin. You do have Willie McIver, first baseman Grant Levine. This is his second year. He wasn't protected last year, but did have a much better season with the Yard Goats. Second base / third baseman is mostly a third baseman, Aaron Schunk. Vladimir Restituyo, young guy that was down there in Hartford, definitely made some great strides. Jeff Criswell, Tanner Gordon, Chris McMahon, Victor Juarez. I think a couple other guys. Alec Barger, who was one of the players acquired at the trade deadline, as well as Connor Van Scoyac. So a lot of decisions to be made today. It's going to be interesting.
It really will be. And some of those names you just rattled off, the McMahons, the Shunks, the Levines, these are guys that we all thought a couple of years ago, these are pieces of the puzzle. And now we're trying to figure out, do we protect them or not, if you're Bill Schmidt. And so I think that it's really interesting. Prospects is always such a crapshoot, but it will be very interesting to see which direction they go with some of these guys.
Speaking of crap, no, I don't have. That's a bad segue. I don't. What's the next thing I say after this? Now I really painted myself into a crap corner. No, all right. So yesterday was the 26th anniversary of Larry Walker winning NL MVP. So we'll kind of tip our cap to that. Today is the 9th anniversary. The Hartford City Council approved what would later become Duncan Park for the Yard Goats.
Absolutely,
it's a nice little anniversary.
Very nice
to think about. Manager of the Year award. Let's get to some manager news. Pat Murphy, new manager for the Milwaukee Brewers. Yep. On Monday, came out on Sunday, but Monday morning they made it official in Houston. Joe Espada announced as the Astros coach to succeed Dusty Baker. Has been their bench coach, been with Houston the last 7 years. Kind of seems like the natural fit there. And as we said at the top of the show, Padres still waiting. Pat Murphy, Joe Espada. Okay.
I think Espada is the smart move for the Astros.
Yeah, that's a good
obviously, with everything going on with Craig Counsell, and we're going to talk about that with Manager of the Year in a minute, which is going to be awkward. But absolutely, Espada coming in there, I think that's going to be a real nice continuation for Houston. And Pat Murphy, they're kind of forced into that situation. I think that they're almost looking internally, but the Brewers are such a interesting thing about what's going to happen with them. Are they really going to tear down as the rumors say they might? You go from winning the NL Central to all of a sudden your manager being poached by your arch rivals, you're tearing down. That's a fall from grace right there.
Yeah, that's painful. And Corbin Burns, we know, is going to be on the market. Yep. Brendan Woodruff has 1 year left, but he's going through some injury stuff right now. So that's kind of a lost cause. Willie Adames, also a free agent after this year. So, yeah, they may need to break that down a little bit. And Pat Murphy, a guy who was there in San Diego and they were breaking it down, might have to go through that again. In the chat, we're going to get to some pitchers that could be a fit this offseason for the Colorado Rockies in just a second. But did you see what number? This is interesting. Look, we are not officially in the slow part of the off season yet. So say what you will. I find this to be interesting. And Tiff, maybe you could kind of chime in on this. Am I forcing this piece of news? Is this better when it really gets slow late in December, early in January, or does this fit? New Mets manager Carlos Mendoza has announced he's going to wear the number 28. We're talking about manager numbers here on the show? Yes, here's why. A little salty. I like it. He says it's his promise that the Mets will win another World Series before the Yankees will win their next ring, the 28th. Tiff, am I forcing this news topic, or is this kind of interesting?
No, I don't think you're forcing it, but I guess managers wear numbers?
And there you go. We broke some news today.
We did.
Managers wear numbers. Oh wow. And this is why we need to be talking more on these shows. Kevin, get out of here. Okay, this is interesting.
Come on,
and
Tip.
So, who was I talking about this recently to? Managers wear uniforms.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Which is different,
Which is
right?
a little strange.
Right? In hockey, they're wearing suit, they're looking good. Yeah. Football,
they're wearing hoodies and sweats.
Thanks to Bill Belichick. Yeah, maybe there's sleeves on those hoodies. Maybe not. Basketball, they're dressed, pretty nicely. Yeah. But in baseball, there's basically a rule, and it says, if you want to go out to the mound, you have to wear the uniform. There was an all-time great manager, most wins and most losses all time in the history of baseball. His name is Connie Mack, real name Cornelius McGillicuddy. How great is that? He wore a suit and tie all the time throughout his 50-year managerial career. So he never could make a pitching change because he didn't wear a uniform. So he kind of would just chill in the dugout. But managers, yes, they actually have numbers. I love
crazy.
that.
That's crazy. Do the coaches, managers,
coaches have
all of them? Yep.
Coaches have numbers too. Cool. They're not as they're not always great numbers, but anyway, with the Yankees too. I mean, their coaches are like in the 80s and stuff because they're just running out. The
Yeah.
Yankees might even have to come up with a new system. They might have to go to triple digits. I think they might like duplicate numbers if you're a coach or
What about
something
some
like that.
decimals?
Yeah.
Decimals,
See, that's what I'm thinking.
emojis.
Emojis.
All right, see now you're interested in what's going on with managers and their outfits.
Yeah, I like it. This is very
The more you know.
off-season. I love it.
Do not search out any more baseball content. This offseason is going to be all about did you know? And then we'll just see where it takes us.
I was gonna say you can do that very well with me, and then usually I can do something very similar with hockey for you.
But it's true. You're like, why do managers and coaches wear numbers?
Great question.
I don't. Right?
You're gonna have to make sure you're on top of all your trivia,
It's
as
a great
you always
point.
are.
It's a great point. I do love that. I do love that. What I also love is Breck Brew, Broncos Country, still going. The beer of the month, sourced with all Colorado ingredients from the North Fork Valley. Those high wire hops, amazing, made with 100% renewable energy. Get it right here. In fact, get it in a lot of places. Find it when you go to breckbrew.com. Use the beer locator. Did you know it's found in every minor league affiliate of the Rockies except Hartford?
No.
Shame.
Tell me.
Can you believe that?
No.
Spokane, boom, you can get it. Albuquerque, yes. Fresno, okay. But not
Eastern
Hartford.
time zone.
Just shameful. Shameful. You are not going to be shameful if you can get some great memorabilia, some merchandise from FOCO, especially when you use that code DNVR for 10% off all non-presale items. Every couple of weeks, I go back on the site and kind of make up a new wish list for myself, find an excuse. Hey, it's my birthday. That's in the middle of the summer. Holidays are coming up. I do that. I'll see if, I'm going to get something for Kev. Your birthday is at a different time of the year, so maybe I'll get myself a little something too. I find an excuse to go to FOCO and use that 10% discount when I use code DNVR. Right now, they've got all kinds of great toys and collectibles. What were some of the new things that I did find? Besides the overalls, which is a big one, besides the overalls, they have a lot of really great stuff. They've got hats. That was it. Friendship bracelets. Thank you for the reminder. They got the 90 vintage retro shirts. The friendship bracelets were actually kind of a big one that I thought was cool. They do have Broncos overalls now in addition to the CU overalls. There's a really cool Muhammad Ali Thrilla in Manila bobblehead that's limited edition. So they've got a lot of cool stuff. And with the holidays coming up, definitely make sure you get in on the action when it comes to FOCO and code DNVR for 10% off all non-presale items. So who is going to be manager of the year? In the American League, Bruce Bochy, Brandon Hyde, and Kevin Cash. It's got to be Brandon Hyde, right? That would be my pick.
I mean, I would think that as well. I mean, knowing when this was voted for, I would
point.
Yes. I mean, that's just it. It's voted on before the postseason
Before.
begins. So I think that short circuits any of the Bochy talk. And I mean, I would, if I had a ballot, I would absolutely throw it toward Hyde.
Yeah.
I would.
Bochy banter.
The Bochy banner.
Yeah. And Dusty Baker, man. I mean, not even in the top three.
No, not even.
Man.
You know?
Yep. Kevin Cash, he always seems to be there. And then Bochy, yeah, what he was able to do getting them into the postseason. But I think it's going to be Hyde's for going through a few hundred lost seasons and going to the mountaintop, winning the AL East. It's got to be him. And then the NL, you got Brian Snitker from Atlanta, Skip Schumacher from Miami, and then Craig Counsell. Probably Craig Counsell, right?
I'm thinking it's going to get really awkward tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I noticed
honestly.
on Twitter, the Brewers account said, like, thank you, Craig Counsell. They have a graphic. I'm like, oh, they're just kind of like warming things up because, like, we're going to have to thank him again when he wins the award. So let's kind of get used to this thing real quick.
Yeah, if you're Brewers social media, do you put out, hey, manager of the year? You know, we kind of want it. You know, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. Is it weird that I'm thinking Skip Schumacher's got more of a chance than most people do at this?
Maybe.
I mean, what he did in Miami, knowing the whole Sandy Alcantara thing with the injury and everything else, and how he kept that team together. I don't know.
It's true.
I've Snitker, absolutely. The Braves were loaded this year, you know, and I'm thinking if Snitker gets in there, why doesn't Dave Roberts get in there? I mean, to be honest with you,
Who had the better roster going into the year? Who had the bigger question marks?
Absolutely
Dodgers.
right. And who had a lot more injuries and things to deal with during the year too. And I know, a lot of folks listening may not be Dave Roberts fans, but I'm really wondering why he didn't get that third place in there instead of Snicker.
Yep. Does not make sense to me. But we'll find out about that. We'll see what kind of graphics the Cubs make too. Are they going to post Craig Counsell in a Cubs hat? Congratulations, and in small print for the Brewers. All right, let's get to some starting pitcher fits for the Colorado Rockies. Two guys are coming back in the rotation that you can count on: Kyle Freeland and Austin Gomber. After that, tons of question marks. Seems like they're going to have to sign at least two guys. Who are two more names? Let's go with Nick Martinez, free agent, opts out of his deal. Was pitching over in Asia a couple of years ago. Kind of had to take a step back after a failed career as a reliever. Has reinvented himself just a little bit as a starting pitcher. He's 33, so he's no spring chicken, but he doesn't have the same mileage on his arm since he's been a reliever. Career 4.31 ERA, but since 2022, since coming back over to the U.S., pitching for the Padres, 3.45 ERA. But maybe the more important thing for the Rockies, and this is where it'll be interesting to catch up with Bill Schmidt at the winter meetings, what is he looking for? A guy with upside, a guy like Nick Martinez, or reliability of innings? Only 19 game starts for Martinez. Only had 2 quality starts this past year.
He did. But look at one thing that jumps out at me about Nick Martinez, the exit velocity.
Ooh.
Now, he had a career low 83.8 miles per hour on his exit velocity this year. It's cut it down from 86.3. So he found a way to kind of either miss bats or have the bats miss the ball. And so I'm very intrigued by that. He's actually a guy, again, with the Padres. I watched him quite a bit last year. Mm-hmm. He was a big part of that Padres team. And you're hearing them talk about Blake Snell not being there, Seth Lugo leaving, all the Padres defections that they're having. But I'm telling you, Nick Martinez is going to be a guy that they miss in San Diego.
Yeah, the hard part with this, and that's why we're going to preview a lot of guys, because eventually we'll hit on one that the Rockies end up signing, is that there's basically 29 other teams in the Rockies' way for these guys' services. And the Rockies will have to overpay a little bit, and it's hard to know with these like mid to lower tier starting pitchers how much that overpay is. It'll probably be like an extra year and then an extra $2 or $3 million to pay, and you go, that's kind of rich, but we're not talking about breaking the bank like in the Denny Nagel, Mike Hampton situation in 2000. But yeah, the 2 quality starts, only had 3 starts of 6 innings or more last year, 4 starts of 5 innings or more. And we saw what not getting length from starting pitchers meant to the Rockies and their bullpen, who I really thought going into the year was going to be a strength. Yeah. And I think they were. They just got really beat up. You don't want that to happen again. So you need a bit of reliability. I don't know if Nick Martinez checks off that box for reliability.
I agree with you. And also, you look, there's a 7.41 ERA career at Coors, 17 innings. So there's a little bit of a red flag there.
Kev, if we did this for every pitcher we're going to talk about this offseason, the Rockies aren't going to sign anybody.
No, it was fantastic because I would watch Nick Martinez and I'd be like, oh, look at him. He's doing well. He's at Petco, Rocca, and then he comes to Coors and I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I still have to look.
I know.
I look to see if they're good. If it's like 4.5 or below, I'm like, this guy's a dude. Anything higher than that, I'm not even counting it. I'm not even counting it. All right. Second guy we'll talk about today, another dude with those NL West ties, Padres ties, left-handed pitcher, Sean Manaea would give the Rockies 3 guys from the left side. Gomber, Freeland, and Manaea, a little younger, 32 years old. 4.10 career ERA, knows this division really well. The con with him, I think it will take, at least an extra year than what Nick Martinez will end up getting. 3, maybe 4-year deal. Definitely is going to get $10 million or more. And again, now that you're going up to that 4th year and having to add on a year or 2, I mean, we could be talking 4 years, $60 million. That's kind of sizable when you're already paying Freeland what you are, and Marquez what he's going to get when he's back and healthy in 2025. And so now you're locking up a lot of money in the starting rotation.
And again, a guy who only made 10 starts last year. And I think that's the key thing. You look at his innings last year, only 117.2, mostly a bullpen guy, but also had some ineffectiveness when he was a starter. And that's one of the reasons why he got pushed back. So I feel like that with Manaea, at least, that there's a lot of guys that the Rockies already have who are Manaea types, that maybe they are better in the bullpen, or Bud might feel more comfortable with them coming out of the bullpen than starting. So I don't know how much of a fit he is, even with the San Francisco and San Diego ties and the familiarity with the NL West.
Yeah, it's going to take a player that the Rockies see something more in. Kind of like with Austin Gomber. You got him, you knew he was a fly ball pitcher, and people said, like, this is totally not a fit. Why did you think this was going to be a guy who'd be successful with your organization? And yes, there have been a couple clunker starts, I think, that have really overinflated Gomber stats. He's had some stretches of virtual brilliance. And so I think it could be a guy of like, you know what, we see this thing in Minaya that, despite the fact that in the last 2 years combined, he's been a negative half a win, above a replacement player. In that case, he would actually be below. Can we have WBR, right? How many wins below a replacement player?
That would be a good stat, actually.
Weber?
The Weber. What does the
Kenneth,
Weber say?
we need Kenneth to get on this. Kenneth, there's a stat with your name on it, bro. Come on. Get on this. Yeah, Sean Minaya, could be interesting. I would like to hear some of his stories about going last offseason with Joe Musgrove to Antarctica.
Yeah. Now
that would be
pretty
cool.
Let's be honest. I'd talk to you about that.
You have?
No, I would like
to
talk to you about that. Absolutely.
We still can because most teams do end up coming through Colorado now,
and Musgrove
which is nice.
We know Musgrove will still be with the Padres, so we'll at least catch up with him next year for sure.
And because I know how much you're able to keep an eye on the Padres, and everyone here I think has an extra eye on the NL West. Naturally speaking, of course, since it's in the division. Do have to ask, what's your take on Juan Soto? Obviously, putting aside the unfortunate passing of Peter Seidler today. Do you think it's likely that he gets traded here and is his final year before he becomes a free agent?
Is it weird to say that was one of the first thoughts I had when I heard that news? Honestly, because
that it's a done deal now.
Yeah, honestly, because I think that the Padres will move Soto. I think now that their chairman and CEO has passed, I think that it really is going to signal a new era in San Diego for a lot of things. And so I think that, you look at how much that they gave up for Juan Soto, and Josh Bell came over in that same deal. Let's not overlook that. But still, how much they gave for him, all the prospects are now doing well with the Washington Nationals. Mm-hmm. They're not going to get that kind of return for Soto now. And so it really is just about what is the best deal that the Yankees can give you or the Cubs can get you, all these teams. And if they can get a Clark Schmidt or a Hayden Wesniewski from the Cubs, one of those guys who can fit into their rotation, I think that they'll probably say, all right, let's do it, because the Padres need pitching just as much as the Rockies do. Yeah,
it's true. The Padres are really going to have to be creative. Speaking of Kenneth, we were talking with him last week. Because of how bad they were last year, it almost feels like even if they get rid of a lot of players, they might even be better, And again, a lot of that's going to depend on who their manager might be. I think Phil Nevin interviewed for the job, right? I think maybe Benji Gill's been in on that. Mike Schiltz has been some of the names kicked around.
Ryan Flaherty. So they've got a couple of internal guys. There was a lot of buzz around Benji Gill. There was very recently, but I believe Kevin Acey from the San Diego Union Tribune reported this morning that he is out of the running. So we'll have to see how that goes. And again, this will probably push everything back, I have a feeling. And I think as long as the Padres have somebody in place before we see them in Nashville, I think they'll be fine.
This could throw a wrench in the entire postseason because everyone's obviously going to be waiting for Shohei Ohtani to move. And then, okay, you lost out on Ohtani. Now all of a sudden you've got an extra $45 million to spend in free agency. Right. You can grab 2 players. You can grab 3 more middle tier players. And then with Juan Soto, if the Padres aren't really, able to do anything in the wake of Peter Seidler's unfortunate passing, then that could also kind of stall the trade market and the free agent market as well.
Oh, absolutely. And the biggest thing with the Padres in trading Juan Soto is if you trade him, where's the offense going to come from? You look at what he meant to that lineup last year. It's not like you can just send him out and say, oh, the Jackson Merrills are going to, their top rookies are going to come in and replace. It's not that easy with a roster that has so many locked in big contracts.
Yeah. No, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes down. Again, thoughts and prayers, obviously, with the Peter Seidler's family, the entire Padres community, as they go into this offseason with even more uncertainty than they've already had to deal with. But what's always certain is, Kevin, I can rely on you to talk baseball. Have a good time doing it.
Always good, brother.
Bring your perspective. Go ahead and plug away. Let folks know where they can get all your stuff over at FanSided. What are some of the things you're working on?
Yeah, make sure you check me out, fansided.com. I will be, after Thursday night's ballot release for the NL MVP, I will be telling you why I voted for who I did in some of those places. I have no doubt that there will be some fireballs thrown at me on social media, but I'll be ready.
Maybe this is where Nolan Jones gets made up for him. Maybe we say, again, don't say anything, but that's why we're gonna have to tune in to the awards. And again, I like after the winners are announced, that's great. Like I am obsessed with what happens after that and the different ballots. And now that I'm on the chopping block as one of those voters, I still love it. I still come at me, bring it. I love it. At DNVR_Rockies, at Patrick D. Lyons is where I can be found. All kinds of written content over at the DNVR.com as well. For super producer Tiff at Tiffany_Tano. We appreciate you joining us. Appreciate the momentum Kevin has given us. I'll be here every Tuesday and Thursday. The 2 T's for Patty Stats. Patty 2 T's, Stats 2 T's. That's how you can remember it. That's how we're doing it this off season. Thanks for the momentum. But hey, it's only as good as your next show. Good thing Susie will be back tomorrow right here on the DNVR Sports Channel, live on YouTube.